And that gets us to a little bit about nutrition. I think it's helpful to understand the basics of it a little bit. So when we talk about nutrition, we need to talk about food to energy, because our bodies create energy, which is ATP, through the combustion of nutrients, and we describe that in cellular respiration, if we want to. So we break down glucose, we go into the mitochondria, and we're going to get ATP out of that. And then this energy is used to then build and maintain our body. Nutrients are broken down by enzymes via the chemical digestion. We learned that, as well as the mechanical digestion, which is the chewing and the muscular churning. We learned that in the previous chapter. And then these molecules are small enough then to be absorbed through the intestinal mucosa into the bloodstream as well as the lymphatic vessels. The bloodstream is for the water-soluble nutrients and the lymphatic vessels for the fatty, the insoluble. Once in the bloodstream, food particles passes by the liver via the hepatic portal system for the initial processing before they reach the body cells, where then they can be broken down oxidatively in the mitochondria to produce ATP and water and CO2. So that's just the process of making ATP. And ATP is potential energy that is made to be split or available whenever we need it. So we take that ATP, we bring it to where we need it, we chunk off one of the P's. ATP is for adenosine triphosphate, so that means the molecule has 3 phosphates, and the third phosphate is attached to the second phosphate with a high energy bond. And we split that bond off, and that gets us energy to create cellular work. And that's like a muscle contraction or protein synthesis or so forth. Metabolism includes all biochemical processes that are needed to maintain life. That's what metabolism means as a definition. When we further analyze that, we have catabolism, which includes the processes that break down energy rich into energy poor molecules with the liberation of ATP. And we have anabolism, which includes processes that synthesizes endogenous, which means the body's own, it makes things, substances, and that uses ATP, that uses energy when you make stuff. So that's used to grow and to maintain our body. And unlike plants that convert sunlight into chemical energies via photosynthesis, we animals have to regularly eat food to make this energy available. We need the food to do so. Otherwise, no food, no energy, no life. How much food do we need? The amount of food necessary, the amount of energy necessary, will determine how much food we need. Not how much we want, but how much we need. And that depends on many factors. Age, sex, weight, temperature in the outside, mental and physical activity, reactions, a fever, function of the thyroid. The thing that makes the biggest difference is physical activity. That influences it greatly. So when we describe energy requirements, we describe it as a resting need, and that's a bit basal metabolism, as well as a need of an excessive metabolism need, and what happens when we're active, or how active we are, we can describe that. So when we look at that, whoa, not like that fast, please. Okay, that's good, there you go. When we look at that, we look at calories. Calories are the energy content in food. And what we do is we burn it and we capture the heat, and that's called a calorimeter. And we can describe a unit, and 1 unit is 1 calorie that gives us the energy for raising 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Okay, a lot of whatever, right? That's a large calorie. Well, that's not that. That's like about 2 pounds of water That's a quart of water raised by 1 degree Celsius. Well, I don't know how to do that in Fahrenheit, but that's a pretty good amount of heating. And so that's a large calorie. 1 gram of carbohydrates and proteins contain about 4 kilocalories. 1 gram of fat about 9.3, 1 gram of alcohol about 7. Okay, those are actually the smaller calories. So we have large calories and small calories. When we talk about main calories, we should talk about the smaller ones. So 4 and 9. So that's why when we want to lose weight, we want to eat, or they tell us to only eat fat-free. The problem with that is the fat also helps us feel full because the stomach digests it a little slower. So we stay full longer, so it makes us satisfied. So we gotta need to balance the whole thing. But certainly from a caloric perspective, the fat has many more calories, more than double, than the carbohydrates. What I also find interesting when we look at the different types of foods, we can eat a pound of Oreo cookies, that's about 2,200 calories. A pound of peanut butter, now who wants to eat a whole pound of peanut butter? That's a lot of dryness in the mouth. But then potato chips, that's easy to do. But look at the amount of calories. And then look at this. We can eat all of this stuff combined, and that's the amount of calories. So we have to be very careful when we look at what food we eat, because a lot of times we say, oh, we don't eat too much food, but do we eat calorie-rich or calorie-dense foods? Or calorie-poor foods? But usually what that means is they're nutrient-rich. So these go in this one, of course, the green and the colorful stuff. When we look at the requirements of energy, we need about 1 calories per kilogram per hour when we're resting. So I'm about, I'm a little heavier now, but 70 kilograms by 24 hours is about 1,680 calories per day. Women are a little bit lower. Okay, so that gives you about a baseline. So when we do then some work, when we sit there and we do typing and we do thinking work of regular nature, we call that light work. We use a little more. We use about 1,000 calories more. When we do moderate work, we use about 2,000 calories work. What's moderate work? Mowing your lawn, doing garden work. And then when we move furniture around, look at that. We use almost 3,000 calories more. So we can really go to town. So but that's a good measuring thing. But I mean, if we try to go with our hunger feeling, then we also kind of get where we need to go. But many of us have a problem with having a balance in that department. So let's talk about the different types of macromolecules. We have proteins, and a balanced human diet should include proteins as well as carbs and fats. Micronutrients, those are macronutrients, and then the micronutrients are minerals and trace elements. Water and fiber are also very important, and that's very important, water and fiber. Water is actually our most important medication, if it's not contaminated water, of course. Protein provides the body with amino acids, and the amino acids are used in the body for biosynthesis of a lot of internal proteins, endogenous proteins. Endogenous means when we make it, our cells make it. And proteins are the workhorses, the work molecules. That's who does the work in the body. We cannot synthesize 8 of the 20 necessary amino acids. And so that's important to know, because 8 of those we have to eat. And if we are vegans, we need to make sure we eat those essential proteins in the right foods, because the foods that have all of those 8s in it are the meats. That's why meats are helpful. The vegetables are usually deficient. They're deficient of some, so we have to combine them that we get all of them. But look at this. This is a chart of all the veggie proteins. Well, not just veggie. We also have meat proteins. But, that's not bad. Look at the cauliflower is 40%. Spinach is almost 50%. Kale's 45%. Broccoli is 45%. That's great. Actually better than chicken, isn't it? So don't think that vegetables don't have any proteins in it. All right. Okay, now that's it, huh? We get to the fats. Fats primarily provide us with energy, and they help us store energy. That's why they have double the energy. Aerobic exercise will burn the fat. So if you go jogging, you'll burn some fat. We have fat for energy, but we also have functional fats, functional lipids. They're needed in high concentrations, or they're present in high concentrations in the sex organs, the adrenal glands, and every membrane of the cell. Cholesterol is a precursor for many of those functional lipids. So cholesterol is actually important. So don't just think cholesterol is only bad. It's a matter of the amount. Fats are solvents that allow complete absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. So that's also important. In order for our fat-soluble vitamins, we have vitamins that are water-soluble and some that are fat-soluble. So we're going to get to that in a minute. Some of those need fats present to be absorbed. And then we have essential fatty acids, and those are mainly omega-6s and omega-3s. Look at those words. Linoleic acid is omega-6 and linolenic acid is omega-3. How complicated is that? Just have it written down right there. But what the omega-3 means is where is there a double bond in the long fatty acid chain of the carbons? And they come from the back, and the omega-3s is from the back, and the omega-6 it's the third from the back, and the omega-6 is the sixth from the back. Those are essential. That means we don't make them. They're required for biological processes and must be taken in because we do not make them. Very important. Very important. The problem with those is the balance. Often we have too many omega-6s. That's why everybody talks about having more omega-3s. And then look at this is a good chart because when we look at the fats, we have good fats, omega-9s, omega-3s. So we have monosaturated fat and polyunsaturated fats. Monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. Then the bad fats are the saturated fats, and really the trans fats are bad. But we'll talk about that. We did talk about that in chemistry. I think I have a slide on that, or a little bit of a video. So that brings us to the carbohydrates. The carbohydrates are the preferred source of energy for many organisms. They can be stored in small quantities as glycogen in the liver and the skeletal muscle, and a little bit in the brain, we know now. And sugars are great because sugars preserve foods from deteriorating. They're great for storing stuff. Now we have fridges, but you know. They also make them also very popular because when we look at sugars, carbohydrates are often sweet. So we can make the sweet ones. And that's the candy stuff. That brings me to that, because we get to talk about sugar spikes for a moment, because that's the problem we have in our society these days. Is we eat a lot of simple sugars, we eat a lot of processed foods, and they burden the pancreas because when we eat those, the pancreas needs to make a lot of insulin very quickly. We get blood sugar spikes quickly when we eat candy stuff, and that is followed by a rapid drop to low levels, which then we have a strong sensation of hunger and fatigue coming after. And so strong swings in the blood sugar level leads to the pancreas exhaustion, but it also leads to a variability in mental and physical performance, because we go up and down and up and down. And the problem with that is not just the pancreas exhaustion. The problem with that is also we often intend to hormonally eat foods when we have these swings that are crappy for us. Because when the blood sugar is very low, the system wants food that go fast and fill it up with sugar fast. And what's that? Candy bar. And so we eat another candy bar. And so when we actually want to lose weight, and what we do a lot is we don't eat breakfast. We want to lose weight and we don't eat breakfast by, late morning or something. So you go, oh great, we have not eaten much yet. But we're getting so hungry that the system wants to reach for a little candy bar. And it doesn't want to reach for an apple at that time. That's not good enough. That doesn't go fast enough. So we have to, think about that. So the best breakfast, actually, if you want to lose some weight, is a protein breakfast. A good, solid, firm protein breakfast. And that lasts you for a long time. Anyway, when you look at the types